You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the final podcast for 2025. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we are closing in on the 16th anniversary of this podcast, Blue Gal. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
That's right, Driftglass. We began this thing as a once-a-week chat about the state of politics and the media at the start of Barack Obama's second year as President of the United States. And now our podcast has its learner's permit. I understand that it asked you to buy beer at the gas station.
It's like it didn't even know me. It just snuck up and said, hey, mister, could you give me a 6-pack of beer? I said, first of all, I am the Professional Left podcast. How can this be happening? Is this the Twilight Zone? Is this thing even on?
That might be it. Yeah.
But now our podcast is all surly and it knows everything.
And slams the door all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't want me to ask what it's doing in the bathroom for so long.
Spends a lot of time in the bathroom.
A lot of time. The acoustics, I guess, are better in the bathroom. That's probably it.
Anyway, that was January of 2010 that we started this little show. And because that year and that month played such a crucial part of the Republican Party's overall obstruction and sabotage strategy to cripple the Obama administration, we might actually do a whole No Fair Remembering stuff about it in the near future. For now, it's important to remember that during Obama's entire 8 years as president, he only had a Senate supermajority for a total of 72 days, a tiny window during which he could get anything past the unified Republican obstruction.
That's right.
That's 72 days total, by the way. That's not 72 days that Congress was in session.
No, that's it. For 8 years, that's it.
For 8 years, 72 days.
Yep.
And it was actually two even tinier windows. The first was from July 7th through August 25th, 2009. And that only happened because Al Franken was finally seated in the Senate after a long and bitterly contested recount in Minnesota. And it ended. The Democratic supermajority of having 60 votes in the Senate ended when Senator Ted Kennedy died.
Yep. And Democratic supermajority briefly returned in late September of 2009, when a gentleman named Paul G. Kirk was appointed to Kennedy's seat, and then that supermajority was lost for good. And Scott Brown won a special election in Massachusetts, running for the Senate to fill that seat, promising to be the 41st vote to kill Obamacare. That was his main source of attraction. I will be the guy who kills this thing forever.
Yeah. Well, there's a longer story there. The Democratic nominee took it for granted that she was going to win.
Oh, yeah. Martha Coakley. Yeah.
Took a vacation during the campaign and was basically a jerk. And Scott Brown was handsome and drove a red truck. And it was a special election, so only people who were mad were going to show up.
Right.
And everybody assumed that, of course, Massachusetts, Ted Kennedy's seat, is going to be filled by a Democrat.
Even a Democrat that nobody likes.
Yeah. And so I don't need to go out in the winter and vote.
Right.
I think we are closer every year to learning our fucking lesson about that.
Yeah. Eventually they sing. You hit them in the face long enough with the 2x4, and eventually it sinks
us in the face. I mean, the Democratic voter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And even during those very short periods, Blue Gal, when it was possible for Democrats to, actually govern based on what they had run on, there were Democrats like Joe fucking Lieberman who were perfectly willing to use their one vote leverage to extort concessions from President Obama. The primary example of this is the Affordable Care Act's public option, which was in the original bill until Democrat Joe Lieberman and Democrat Ben Nelson made it clear they would not vote for a bill that included a public option at all. In fact, Joe Lieberman explicitly threatened to filibuster his own president if it stayed in. So, If you're looking for graves to piss on because the ACA was crippled by scumbags right out of the gate, you could do worse than starting with the final resting place of Joseph Isidore Lieberman in Agudath Shalom Cemetery in Stamford, Connecticut. Now, I'm going to be very clear. The professional left does not endorse urine-based cemetery protests.
No, we do not.
Very clear about that. We will only note that findagrave.com has this amazing location feature that will give you the exact GPS longitude and latitude of graves all over the world. So,
well, that's very helpful.
This is the Professional podcast going the extra mile to give you, the public, more information, useful information than almost any other podcast out there. So,
yeah. Since this will be our last show of 2025, Driftglass, and I love you very much, and thank you for hanging with me this year and being my husband, my wonderful husband.
Sure.
And since we spent the last and since we spent the last 3 episodes going over the entire year in some detail, we didn't cover everything, but we covered a lot. We thought we'd fiddle with the idea of distilling 2025 down to a few key words or phrases.
Yeah, we're doing the pundit thing here, guys. We're doing the pundit thing.
By the way, for the next couple of days, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, Crooks and Liars will be running the Crookie Awards all day.
Yeah.
So you might want to go check that out. There's some good posts there on different things that happened during a year.
You might see a few of your suggestions showing up in the Crookie Awards.
You very much might see a few of your suggestions up there.
If you sent envelopes of cash along to Blue Gal in time for Santa Claus.
We'll get to that at the end of the show. We have something to tell you about envelopes. For example, if we were to summarize the year this podcast was launched, 2010, what words would we come up with to describe the year 2010? Obamacare, definitely. Glenn Beck and his Big Dumb Restore Honor rally, sure. Also the fact that he got paid $1 million, to create the Tea Party, but that's another story. The Tea Party, of course, Republican obstruction, death panels, birtherism, and the 2010 red wave backlash.
Sensing a theme here, Blue Gal. Sensing a theme. Because ask yourself, would the GOP have lost its damn mind over an Affordable Care Act if it had been proposed by, say, a President Romney or President McCain? Of course not. Would they have spent the next 15 years trying to destroy it? Of course not. Now, after the humiliating collapse of the Bush administration, there would have been some angry reaction from the right. That's obvious. But would it have come out as the shrieking, venomous Tea Party hatred if a generic white Republican had been elected in 2008? Would there have been all this dire talk of death panels? Would Tucker Carlson's Daily Caller, which launched in January of 2010, even exist? Without it, would Tucker Carlson have faded away into a well-deserved obscurity? Would the Daily Wire never have existed? And without it, would Ben Shapiro be just another angry incel yapping about the Federalist Papers to a small group of other angry incels, Blue Gal?
I would argue that even if it was a white Democrat, there would have been far less. And you can run the counterfactuals all the way out to the present day. But we're going to do the opposite and ask that question. What do Obamacare, the Tea Party freakout, Glenn Beck, Republican obstructionism, death panels, birtherism especially, and the 2010 red wave all have in common? Racism.
Yep. Racism.
They are all different manifestations of what Stuart Stevens calls the original sin of the modern Republican Party. Racism. Here he is back in 2021 on Joy Reid's show on MSNBC, back when Joy Reid still had a show, and there were a whole lot of other black people that lost their jobs in 2025 at MSNBC, by the way.
Persons of color who were mysteriously purged all in the same...
all of a sudden, they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
And by the way, the network was still called MSNBC back in 2021. Yeah. So Stuart Stevens is talking about a campaign ad for Republican Glenn Youngkin, who was running for Virginia governor. The ad featured an older blonde woman wringing her hands and telling a story about a book that her son had to read for school.
He was forced to, Blue Gal. He was forced to.
As an assignment, read for school, one that was so upsetting, so explicit, that her heart sunk to think of it. My heart sunk to think of it. This poor blonde woman.
Mm-hmm.
According to Slate magazine, quote, internet sleuths didn't have to look far to find out that the woman was Laura Murphy, a Fairfax County conservative activist.
Of course she was.
Why don't I get called to make ads for Democratic candidates? And I can wring my hands and talk about my kids who are 20, 30, whatever.
Well,
and by the way, the son is Blake Murphy, who is 27 and works for the National Republican Congressional Committee.
I am put in mind of the Hands commercial. Jesse Helms, you deserve that job.
Oh, yeah.
But it was given to a minority who was unqualified.
Unqualified
I mean, this
minority.
is so fucking Republican, right down the line.
Yeah. So the traumatizing assignment for this poor child who was forced to read this terrible book and her heart sunk about it was over 10 years ago. 10 years before the ad ran.
Yeah.
And the explicit book that she's so upset about was Toni Morrison's much decorated masterpiece, Beloved.
Race is the original sin of the modern Republican Party. And we used to, as Republicans, admit this and try to change at least. I mean, Ken Mehlman went before the NAACP in 2005, chairman of the party, and apologized for the Southern strategy. All that's out the window now. This is really a pretty straight up, simple race. Donald Trump lost Virginia by 10 points on November 3rd, 2020. If you didn't vote for Donald Trump on November 3rd, 2020, why would you vote for him on November 2nd, 2021? He's Trump's candidate. And this whole issue over the only African-American woman to win the Nobel Literature Prize is just, it embodies all of these things. It's about denying of history, as you were saying. It's about race. And look, what is this about cancel culture? They're trying to cancel our only African-American female Nobel laureate in literature. It just shows the complete fraudulent nature of the entire Republican ethos now.
So if racism was the word at the root of so much of what was happening in 2010, what's your word or phrase to sum up 2025, Blue Gal?
Well, my word is Project 2025. For 2025. In last September's presidential debate, Trump said he knew nothing about Project 2025.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before.
How's that great economy working out for everybody? He was lying, of course. Trump hired one of the main authors of Project 2025, Russell Vought, as his director of the Office of Management and Budget. And Trump has primarily through executive orders implemented over 40% of Project 2025's wish list, which it includes excluding LGBTQ plus people from government and military employment, erasing bodily autonomy for women, and administratively demolishing the Department of Education, among many other bad things. Project 2025 is the official policy of the Republican executive branch of government, and the Republican legislative and the Republican judicial branches of government are also completely on board. We know that the billionaires who funded Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation Brain Trust, they also fund, hold all the puppet strings of the Republican Party. And they have since way before Trump. And if that weren't depressing enough, the Democratic Party literally made warnings about Project 2025 the keynote of their entire nominating convention last summer. As PolitiFact noted at the time, quote, "This is Project 2025, Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow said as she laid a hardbound copy of the 900-page document on the lectern. Over the next 4 nights, you are going to hear a lot about what is in this 900-page document. Why? Because this is the Republican blueprint for a second Trump term, unquote. And it is the blueprint, clearer and more definite than Trump's ballroom. The media did not listen, and therefore the voters did not hear. There is such a bland denial of reality in the United States. This zombie belief that Trump can't possibly do all those things because they're so unpopular. How is that working out for you, Trump voters?
Mm-hmm.
Trump doesn't care about your feelings. Oligarchy, the whole cabinet, none of them care about your feelings or your opinions about things.
Or your life.
Or your life, or whether you can afford health insurance. And here's the tragedy. This is the tragedy that comes from this entire experience. The Democratic Party spent their entire convention talking about Project 2025 and making it a policy-based argument against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they should have done that. I think they should have called him a rapist and a cheat and been done with it. Porn star hush money. That's what I think they should have done. But they didn't. They went with Project 2025 and made that the cornerstone and the keynote of their entire convention. Our problem is not Democratic messaging about Project 2025 and how bad Trump is. Democrats messaged about Project 2025 for their entire convention and the campaign that followed. Our problem is a corporatized and, let's face it, conservative media ecosystem that deliberately sidelines that messaging to help Republicans.
Amen.
So what about you, Driftglass? What's your word or phrase for 2025?
Well, my word or phrase is Project 2025, Blue Gal. I decided just to copy off of you. No, that was really good. But before I talk about my phrase of the year, I need to set the mood a little bit by playing a little bit of music. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So why? Why would I do this terrible thing to you? Play this damn earworm. And we didn't even need to play all of it, did we? Just the first few seconds, but you know what it is, right? So how did that song dig itself into our heads to the point where we all we need to do is hear the first few seconds, and there it is in your mind, the whole damn Macarena. The trick, kids, is repetition. That's the key to making an earworm. Endless repetition. And of course, Al Gore.
I would like to demonstrate for you the Al Gore version of the Macarena. Would you like to see it again?
And that's why my phrase of the year is both siderism, which is my personal favorite, or both sidesism, which, however you want to say it, that's it. That's my word or phrase. Consider how many thousands of times the general public has heard Congress or politicians in Washington being casually slagged for what are specifically Republican disasters every year, year after year, decade after decade. And unlike music, there's no turning it off. It's coming from everywhere. It's coming from the media, absolutely, but it's coming from people running for office in both parties. They both run against politicians in Washington because they're the problem. It's coming from your neighbors. It's coming from your coworkers. It's in the gossip parlors at church. It's at any bar, any barbershop, or any hair salon anywhere. So, no surprise that depressingly but predictably, this granddaddy of all modern political lies, the both sides do it lie, had another banner year this year. And my bold prediction for 2026 is that it's going to have another banner year next year, which makes a depressing but predictable kind of sense because Republican fascists and the legacy media have a deeply symbiotic relationship with each other, like two drunks staying upright by leaning on each other for support. As the Republican Party was accelerating along the racist paranoid trajectory that led them to Trump, party leaders needed to keep the clueless and the cowardly from freaking the hell out and noticing how completely unhinged the party had become. Because if that happened, it could be very, very bad for Republicans, Blue Gal. Fortunately, the legacy media was only too happy to help by pretending the Democrats and Republicans were both basically normal, sane political parties, and whatever that very loud noise you were hearing on the right, it was probably nothing to worry about. Everything was fine. Or at worst, it was no worse than the imaginary racket being kicked up by fictional extremes on the left. Isn't that right, Tom Nichols?
Tom Nichols sure can invent some leftist to do something bad, can't he?
Confronted with anything that happened before 2017, that's when he left the GOP, and he'll go like, "What about Abby Hoffman, huh? What about that, huh?" Well, fuck you, man. How about let's talk about the political party that you're supposed to know all sorts of shit about as it exists for your entire adult life, okay? Because you want to go back to 68, you were 7, and so was I.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel like holding myself responsible or you for not knowing.
I was 5.
Yeah. What about Abby Hoffman, huh? What about the Weathermen, huh? Like, fuck you, man. What about your party since the day you became an adult? How about let's talk about that? Then
I am willing to relitigate the 1972 presidential election.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah. No. I was, 11 at the time?
Let's
going on
go
12?
there.
Yeah. But
breaking into the Watergate, and let's redo that election, knowing what we know now.
But let's
see what President McGovern does to change the course of America.
Let's talk about the Powell memo. Let's talk about the Southern strategy. Let's talk about all the things that
treason that Republican presidents did to get elected,
and that you desperately want to refuse and you refuse to talk about because it's all you're complicit in it.
I'm going to say it again: treason.
And don't forget, this is the stuff that you get paid to know about. That people pay you for your expertise in this shit. And apparently you're only an expert up from 2017 and beyond. Before that, it's all a mystery. No one knows what happened. And
very cloudy.
It's all very cloudy. And since no one's going to give a camera or a microphone to liberals to correct you in your errors, you can just keep lying about the past all you want. And
I'm making a note. That's a good topic for a No Fair Remembering stuff.
What's that?
Republican treason to get elected.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's mostly documented by now.
Yeah. Well, that's our award-winning 20-part series, No Fair Remembering stuff. We'll take up the first half of it. Oh, you know what? If we really pad it out, we could make that our 1,000th episode if we just keep piling it on next year. Because we're in the 950s now, right?
950s now, and we do 2 a week, roughly.
Yeah. So we'll cut it down.
We'll see how it goes.
Anyway, once the Republican Party fascists had achieved escape velocity, the GOP then had a different problem, right? How to get clueless and cowardly independent voters to look at a depraved, rapist, racist who lies about literally everything, sitting on top of a Republican Party of hacks and grifters and traitors and lunatics, and then look at either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris and then say to themselves, well, I just don't know. I mean, Joe is old and Kamala has a weird laugh. And she didn't go on that Joe Rogan thing, did she? She didn't even go on there. And she keeps yapping about this Project 2025 thing that nobody's ever heard of. And Trump is a businessman, and eggs do cost too much. I guess I have no choice but to vote for the fascist. And once again, the legacy media came to Trump's rescue, mashing both sweaty hands and a stinky foot on the scales of balance, downplaying Trump's growing insanity and his fascist blueprint for gutting American democracy, and upplaying any small flaw or glitch in the Harris campaign to make both candidates and both campaigns look roughly equivalent enough so that the clueless and cowardly independent voters could vote against the intelligent black woman without feeling bad about themselves. And because Republican fascism and legacy media are codependent on each other, now that we're living fully in the dystopian Project 2025 hellscape that Democrats warned again and again was coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now that that's being implemented by the most incompetent and nakedly corrupt cabinet ever, who I would remind you, all of whom were approved by the Republican Senate, the legacy media has been pushing its both sides do it lies almost every day, in almost every venue. Sure, the Republican Party is bad, very bad, but isn't the Democratic Party really nearly as bad, Blue Gal? I mean, really? In fact, if you think about it, aren't those crazy liberals really the ones who are responsible for pushing the GOP into going full fascist? Aren't they just reacting to Democratic and leftist extremism as you would expect anybody to do? The both sides do it lie has many facets and many variations, but all of them come down to the same thing, making sure that the clueless and the cowardly who are still letting legacy media doing their thinking for them go right on believing that the moral and ideological distance between the two parties is relatively small, a still bridgeable gap between civilized people and not an abyss, that the genuinely sickening and dangerous actions by the GOP are the fault of, a few bad men at the top, or a small angry rabble at the extreme edge of the party. But really, the overwhelming majority of Republican voters are just steady Eddie, decent, all-American folks, this lie requires us to believe, who have somehow, in their tens of millions, all been bamboozled three times in a row, into nominating an obvious monster to the highest office in the land, and then electing him president twice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or, when that laughably obvious version of the lie fails, out comes, the tale of the lost center, Blue Gal. The lost center. Where's the center? There exists out there somewhere, hidden from the legacy media by the mists of time and Midwest stoicism, like a sensible moderate brigadoon, Blue Gal. There exists a wholly political center majority, and if only both sides would just quit jousting with each other, quit being extremes on both sides, then we can get back to the center. And when that laughably obvious version of the lie fails, out comes a pox on both your houses, which insists that it is somehow not the fault of Republican voters that the Republican Party insists on nominating and electing wildly unqualified ghouls and trolls and imbeciles and bigots, that they have been forced into a corner by Democrats who are somehow equally awful but in different ways and have no choice but to keep electing the worst people in the world. Central to every version of the both sides do it lie is the legacy media axiom that no exclusively Republican atrocity must ever be blamed exclusively on Republicans, that Republican voters must never be held responsible for their actions and their decisions.
But Driftglass, they're not perfect, they're just forgiven.
No, Blue Gal, they're not forgiven.
They're not forgiven.
And you know what? Speaking of not forgiven ever, during her 60 Minutes interview, you can hear just how perfectly Marjorie Taylor Greene has learned the legacy media magic conjure words, which have always worked for Republicans who need to escape responsibility for what they have said and done.
It's the most toxic political culture, and it's not helping the American people.
But you contributed to that. You were out there pounding, insulting people.
Leslie, you've contributed to it as well with your own program. Yes, you're accusatory, just like you did just then.
I know you're accusing me, but I'm smiling.
You're accusing me.
I am accusing you.
But we don't have to accuse one another.
I want you to respond to what you have done in terms of insulting people, yelling at people, and then saying...
I'd like for you to respond for that.
I don't...
No, you can respond to that.
I don't insult people.
You do, in the way you question, and you're accusing me right now.
Because, Blue Gal, if everyone is to blame, then no one is to blame.
On topic. Remember this from January 3rd, 2025. Washington Post cartoonist Ann Telnaes realizes what her workplace has become and quits.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, "Why I'm quitting the Washington Post. Democracy can't function without a free press," by Ann Telnaes. I've worked for the Washington Post since 2008 as an editorial cartoonist. I've had editorial feedback and productive conversations and some differences about cartoons I have submitted for publication. But in all that time, I've never had a cartoon killed because of who or what I chose to aim my pen at. Until now. The cartoon that was killed criticized the billionaire tech and media chief executives who have been doing their best to curry favor with incoming President-elect Trump. There have been multiple articles recently about these men with lucrative government contracts and an interest in eliminating regulations making their way to Mar-a-Lago. The group in the cartoon included Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook and Meta founder and CEO, Sam Altman, AI CEO, Patrick Soon-Shiong, LA Times publisher, the Walt Disney Company, ABC News, and Jeff Bezos, Washington Post owner. While it isn't uncommon for editorial page editors to object to visual metaphors within a cartoon if it strikes that editor as unclear or isn't correctly conveying the message intended by the cartoonist, such editorial criticism was not the case regarding this cartoon. To be clear, there have been instances where sketches have been rejected or revisions requested, but never because of the point of view inherent in the cartoon's commentary. That's a game changer and dangerous for a free press, unquote.
Yep. And so she quit.
And
then there was this from The Guardian, also in January of 2025, quote, Melania's $40 million Amazon deal, another sign Bezos is capitulating to Donald Trump. Sadly, the Amazon-Melania deal has much the same flavor as the rest of Trump appeasement moves, not just by Bezos, but by others of his ilk, unquote. Now, you might have thought of the Post as a flawed but venerable home to journalism, and maybe it once was. Hey, I loved watching All the President's Men and those Washington Post guys out there getting the story. That was terrific. But to media dilettante Jeff Bezos, the democracy dies in darkness guy, it was never more than a very small piece of his overall corporate portfolio. Turns out, the minute taking sides against fascism put his other business interests at risk, the billionaire savior of fearless journalism capitulated to Trump almost immediately, which led to an exodus of staff and board members and around 250,000 subscription cancellations, all of which was really just small beer compared to Bezos' larger corporate priorities. And this is at the core of the both sides lie. If Republican atrocities become too monstrous to ignore, then you must avoid taking sides at all costs.
Yep. This year, we brought you stories of farmers getting absolutely slammed by Donald Trump's policies and then blaming both sides for it. The story of a business owner right down the road in Clinton, Illinois, who is in danger of losing her business because of Trump's insane tariffs, but who blames Congress and politicians in Washington for it.
Yep. And the most chilling thing of all is the mindlessness of it. This zombie-like obedience to some long-dead concept of journalistic fairness that's still running like some old Cold War doomsday machine. This year, like every other year, I was not able to cover more than a fraction of the huge both-siderist ecosystem that sustains the legacy media. But going through my 2025 archives just this year, I found dozens and dozens of opinion pieces by prominent op-ed goofs, all singing from the same songbook. And leading the chorus for the 22nd year in a row was the New York Times and David Brooks, which I will not inflict on you at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Because this isn't
Cut for time, Driftglass on David Brooks.
Yeah, I had 2 hours of David Brooks shtick going here, and my sound editor just clipped it all out. It's all sitting on a cutting room floor somewhere, gathering dust. But the reason I'm not going to inflict Mr. Brooks and the New York Times on you specifically is because this isn't about individual lies being told by this corporation or that farmer or that op-ed columnist for their own particular reasons.
Yeah. The Both Sides Do It lie is about so much more than that. It's about a habit of mind drilled into the general public consciousness for decades, to the point that it's become an automatic go-to whenever the truth about our politics and media becomes too uncomfortable. It's basically the Matrix.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
You know, I thought of another metaphor. Do you remember Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Blue Gal?
Uh-huh.
Remember how they captured him, how they got him to come out from behind the wall?
Shave and a haircut.
And then you stop right there.
Yeah.
And it became intolerable. He had to finish it.
Couldn't do it.
And that level of addiction to this lie is what the media has inflicted on the general public about both sides do it. The minute politics becomes uncomfortable or Republicans do something awful, there is this irresistible urge to not blame Republicans for it. They have to say two bits. They have to say it's both sides, man. Yeah. It's Congress. It's politicians. It's certainly not, the guy I voted for. So the scarier the overt fascism of the Republican Party becomes, the more the general public desperately clings to the both sides do it lie, which is exactly how American fascism managed to take root and prosper in the Republican Party right out in the open in the first place. Which is why, Blue Gal, both sides do it is my phrase of the year for 2025.
I'm grateful for our listeners chipping away at that to the point. We've talked about this. You say what you want to say about how this podcast has somewhat succeeded.
Yeah, it's easy to, when you look at what happened in the last election, you look at the rise of Republican fascism, it's easy to go, Jesus, we're just getting our asses kicked everywhere. But in a small way, in a small corner of the political universe, we have made a contribution, which is somebody pulls both sides out of their ass, Chuck Todd or David Brooks, they get swarmed with people saying, it's not both sides, asshole. Don't both sides this, asshole. Why are you doing this, asshole? Keith Olbermann has made this a topic of his podcast over and over again.
Yeah.
So it has become a punchline, such a punchline that many people who are about to say, it really is both sides, have to pre-buttle by saying, now I'm not going to do the both sides thing here. And then they do it.
Yes.
But they recognize the fact that this is now something we are all on alert for.
And that social media will call them out. Yeah. People on social media will call them out for that. Yeah.
And this, I've been writing about literally this lie for 20 years now, going on 21 years now. It is the
you were first. You were the first to really focus on this. Yeah.
One of the earlies. I mean, probably me and Digby and the late Steve Gilliard, but way back in the day. But this is the lie. This is the one. This is the big lie that enables all the other lies. And it's so ubiquitous. Like the Matrix, you just don't even notice it. I mean, it's everywhere. And once you notice it, it's like noticing Italians in hell in the Inferno. Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. Oh my God. What? Well, these are all the people that he hated, so he stuck them in hell. Or you go out and buy a Volkswagen, and suddenly you notice a lot of Volkswagens on the road.
Yeah.
There is this sudden realization that Jesus Christ, everyone is addicted to this goddamn lie. And everyone automatically, their eyes kind of roll back in their head and they go, oh, it really is those darn Republicans. No, I mean, politicians in Washington. Yeah, it's the Congress, the darn Congress. Why are all politicians corrupt, Blue Gal? Why do they all lie? Why are they? And that is their automatic American avoidance mechanism. It's like the big red light goes off in their head going, you're about to blame Republicans for doing Republican shit, which means you'll have to pick a fucking side. And you'd rather tear your own head off than pick a fucking side.
Well, not just take a fucking side, blame Republicans. The whole point is you cannot blame Republicans for what Republicans did. And we don't have this to talk about in our notes, but so clearly the reaction, the very violent reaction on the right to the murder of Charlie Kirk. And the violence was not directed toward the murderer of Charlie Kirk.
No.
It was directed toward anyone who was going to quote Charlie Kirk.
Right.
And that both-siderism comes into play so clearly there that you can't quote David Brooks from 2 weeks ago.
That's the iron rule.
That's the iron rule, right? Yeah.
You can't.
And so I just think that's an absolute corollary to the both sides do it lie.
Yeah, it is.
You cannot remind Republicans of what they said.
Right.
And it is all about Republican accountability for what they do and say. And the entire media ecosystem exists to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's why Trump gets away with this is why. I mean, the big news today is Don Jr. getting a pardon for his crypto buddy.
Yeah.
And
Biden.
Everyone pointing out, oh, gee, Hunter Biden, was the worst thing that ever happened to the presidency, according to the New York Times editorial board.
Uh-huh.
And do they have a word or a peep to say about that today?
No.
Is the White House Correspondents Association making a peep to Donald Trump about anything?
No, of course not.
Because their job is to cover up Republican atrocities. And you either raise Republicans up or bring Democrats down to make them equal.
And this
equally
is
bad.
This is something I'm noodling with. I might write something about it later in the week. I hope to. But, at some point, it's like writing the same thing. It's like all work and no play makes Driftglass.
Yeah, you're just typing the same thing over and over again for years.
I can just pull shit from 2010, 2011, 2015, and it's all of the same thing. But my thesis is the reason so many pundits get MAGA wrong, get Republicans wrong, is that they keep thinking that they're basically just like Democrats. That if they say they want this thing, then that thing is a straight line to what they believe. Like, Democrats want Medicare for all, so they're communists or the social, whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this kind of connective tissue between what we say we want and what we believe. What we say what we want and the policies we endorse and what we believe. MAGA is not that way at all. This is why pundits cannot wrap their heads around it, because MAGA is a genre. It is not a policy-based anything. And they just keep mixing and matching lies over and over again and remembering them and calling them back and reciting them as if they were holy text. And then when that turns out to be a lie, they just drop it and move on to something else. There's no repercussion. There's no nothing, because all of it is just little mad lib words they move around on top of the basic structure, which is we are always right, we are blessed by God, and liberals are the enemy.
Right.
So if liberals didn't have a pizza parlor pedo thing run by Hillary Clinton, which they probably did.
In a basement, we're in a building that didn't have a basement.
Yeah.
Right.
That it doesn't slow them down one bit. It's like, they probably have it somewhere. Maybe it's in the Epstein files. And because what they know in their dark, stupid, racist hearts is they're right about how they feel, and they feel angry. People took shit from them. They've been robbed of their legacy, and that liberals are to blame for it. So any lie that services that core pathology is acceptable, and when it stops being acceptable, they just move on. And that's why pundits are like, well, how could you possibly care about deficits and then not care about deficits? Want this and not want this? Reverse yourself all the time so fast we can't keep up. It's because they don't believe any of it. They believe whatever gives utility and voice to their hatred of liberals at the moment is the most important thing. It doesn't matter if it's true. It's like a religion. It doesn't matter if so-and-so was raised from the dead, really. It doesn't matter if we change water into wine, literally. It's a metaphor for how we feel. And how we feel is we're angry, bigoted trolls who want to take it out on somebody. Yeah. And Donald Trump said he'd do that for us.
The lie of the year for crooks and liars on the crookies is the cover-up of the Epstein files, obviously.
Yeah.
And particularly focusing on the phase 1 binders that were given to DC Drano and Mike Cernovich. And they're waving them around at the White House with their
Cat Turd get one?
hats.
Did Cat Turd get one?
I don't know if Cat Turd got one. I know that Libs of TikTok was there. And DC Drano and Mike Cernovich. Those are the three that I'm for sure know were there with their binders. Containing nothing but unclassified stuff that people have known for years.
Yeah. Well, and
phase 1.
I have learned something from Laura Loomer, by the way.
Oh, yeah. She was really pissed because she wasn't invited to that party.
I've learned something from her, which is if I want to get my column inches, if my byline in the New York Times or the Atlantic, I should just chain myself to the front door of the New York Times and scream and scream and scream until they give me what I want.
Hands.
Just do what she did. Chain myself to the door. And scream lunatic bullshit until I get what I want and become the HR
and
department.
Then you're the HR director of the Trump White House.
And everyone just goes, well, that's just something that happened, I suppose. Let's move on to
from Florida.
I don't know if you know this, but Joe Biden's old, Blue Gal. He's very old, and he's old. Yeah.
No, so the lie of the year is this, months-long cover-up of the Epstein files. And I'm going to change topic here and go. I want to tie both siderism and Project 2025, like our marriage, Driftglass. I'm going to tie this together in a big festive holiday bow.
That is not a metaphor I endorse, Blue Gal, at all. I want to be clear about that. I may tell people where to find Joe Lieberman's grave, but that is as far as I go.
A bridge too far.
A bridge too far. Mm-hmm.
I have a clip here from an MSNBC panel back when it was MSNBC about a man named Jim Brown, not the football player.
No.
This is a Navy combat veteran who described himself as a right-wing redneck who voted for Trump 3 times. Okay. His wife, Donna, had been a legal permanent resident of the United States for over 40 years. She was detained by ICE in July of 2025 due to a past conviction for writing 2 bad checks for a total of $80 10 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
She had been renewing her green card every 10 years without issue, and her husband argued that detention was an arbitrary and harsh enforcement of immigration law under the current administration. Now, here he is testifying before the House Homeland Security Democrats, who held their own hearing. He worked with representatives like Democrat Seth Magaziner and Democrat Lou Correa because his local Republican representatives in Missouri refused to help him.
Then he also voted for President Trump.
Yes, sir.
Why did you vote for him?
Because I was an idiot. 80% of the evangelical Christian people were lied to, if you really want to know the truth, and that's exactly what happened. They said criminal, and I believe criminals need to be off the street.
I just want to make sure people watching this understand who you are.
My wife and I, when we don't work, we're ministers. We help the needy. That's what we do. And that's who they're arresting.
Now, I want to make sure you all caught that. This 90% of the Christian evangelical people were lied to. Well, no shit, Sherlock. When you lined up to vote for Trump for the 3rd fucking time, did you just not notice the thousands and thousands of other lies he had already told? Were you oblivious to all that shit? Because Trump lies to everyone about everything all the time. He's actually famous for it. And for anyone who actually cared about the truth, it was out there in plain sight for anyone to see. This is from the ACLU during the presidential campaign of 2024. Quote, if given a second term, Donald Trump promises to decimate American communities by targeting immigrants who are already contributing members of society and blocking new immigrants from coming lawfully to the United States. Trump has made it clear that he will double down on what he did during his first presidency without regard for the law, decency, or common sense. Indeed, Trump has promised to be far more aggressive in a second term, emboldened by close advisors like Stephen Miller to launch a, quote, shock and awe blitz, unquote, of executive orders and actions that will target millions of immigrants and their families and threaten the freedom of security of everyone in the United States. Trump will unleash a vast arsenal of federal powers to implement the most spectacular migration crackdown, Miller told the New York Times in November of 2023. Former senior Trump officials helped write Project 2025, a detailed plan to overhaul federal agencies that includes more than 175 immigration actions.
There are 175 immigration actions in Project 2025.
Mm-hmm. And as my wife already mentioned, the entire Democratic convention was yelling about Project 2025, trying to get through to people like Jim Brown that if you vote for this shit, bad things are going to happen. Now, let's go back to the MSNBC clip, shall we?
That's a United States veteran describing dramatically the experience of watching his wife, who had been in the U.S. for decades, be arrested by ICE after he voted for Trump in this last election. We're back with Alex and John. Alex, I feel like we need to see more of that and give space and grace to people who say, look, I was an idiot. But it is important to understand that even his supporters didn't think he'd do what he's doing.
Nope. No space for you, Mr. Brown. No grace at all. We're very happy for you that thanks to the pressure Democrats in Congress brought to bear.
I'm sorry, Driftglass. It was both sides.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It was Washington that got his wife out of.
That's right. It was Congress. It was politicians in Washington.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was pressure from Democrats in Congress that got Mr. Brown's wife, Donna, released from detention just earlier this month, and the deportation case against her was dropped. Isn't that nice?
But every time Jim Brown voted for Trump, he was choosing to ignore or shrug off all of the thousands of lies Trump was spewing. Ignore Trump's open racism, his corruption, his conspiracy mongering, him fucking a porn star and cheating on his wife, Mr. Evangelical church person, his treason. Mr. Brown spent the last decade choosing not to see what was happening in plain sight, choosing to support fascists. And he was quite content with his choices until the day came when the consequences of his choices showed up at his door and dragged his own wife away. And then, oh my God, we evangelicals was lied to. It's why many people consider "fuck around and find out" to be the real phrase that defines 2025.
Amen.
And why we're so sad about what we as Democrats have become.
Yeah.
That we have become so unforgiving.
Yeah.
And so the grace that Nicole Wallace wants me to have for my fellow human being has been fucking ripped out of me.
Yeah, it's gone. It's about because they refused it. They refused it. They voted for this asshole 3 times. And they were awful people even before Trump ever showed up.
Yeah.
And over and over again, we talked about the Obama administration and what was going on in 2010. The open, seething racism of the Republican Party was on display back then when Barack Obama tried to do all the things that the centrists and the media thought Democrats should do. Be open-hearted, be open-handed, be generous, reach across the aisle, offer peace tokens, compromise, all of which he did, all of which was greeted with, at the back of their hand, laughter that he could be so naive, sabotage, and blocking everything he tried to do. And then they nominated and elected the king of the birthers. There's no grace left on this side. There's no forgiveness left on this side, which is why when we see these 11th hour converts who only got off the Trump train when something they personally valued or they personally cared about was stomped on by him. And see these people dusted off and propped up as heroes of the resistance.
Yep.
Fuck that.
And they're going to wake up in the next 10 days and see their auto renewal of their health insurance and go, what happened?
What happened? And don't come around here because what we'll do is the worst thing in the world. We'll tell you the truth.
Yep.
We'll tell you the unvarnished truth that this is your fault. You did this.
It is
you
your
brought
fault.
this.
Yep.
You did this to your country, to your fellow citizens, and yourself.
And to us.
Oh, yeah. No. We're all suffering for it.
That's one reason we're so pissed. It did come to our door.
No, you burned down all the buildings.
Yeah.
And you got to us, but you burned down your own as well. So don't come wandering through the ashes looking for forgiveness or grace. There's none left. Maybe you'll find someone at MS Now where they seem to have an awful lot of former Republicans who are perfectly willing to say, "Oh, you know what?
Give you space and grace."
Yeah, no.
To be this asshole so you can go vote for your racism next time.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that unless we have a signed confession that you will never vote Republican again. We don't.
I don't trust them on that either. No.
When I see 60, 65, 70-year-olds, 55, whatever age, I just suddenly realize this is bad. No, really, you've been asleep this entire time. You haven't noticed all the horrid shit. And I know why. And it's because they watch Fox News all day and they listen to hate radio at night. And they're racist.
Yep.
And they're always going to be. So they might learn a really harsh lesson if you kick them in the balls hard enough, often enough. And that's exactly what Trump is doing. But that lesson won't stick because behind them, beneath them, sheltering them, protecting them, they will always find a safe harbor in the both sides do it lie.
Yep.
Nobody asked Mr. Brown about the Democrats. Democrats helped him. Democrats are the ones who helped him out. But ask him a year from now what he thinks of them, and I'm sure he'll say something to the effect of, both parties are pretty bad.
Both what we really need, Blue Gal? And Democrats are baby killers, don't forget.
And maybe what we really need is a third party, Blue Gal. A sensible, centrist third party.
I'm an independent constitutional conservative, and I didn't like what they did to my wife.
And at that point, I shut down my blog and go into selling umbrellas to whatever, selling turkeys on the street, selling pencils. No, I can't sell pencils because we don't do that anymore.
Can I just say how grateful I am for our marriage and you and for our listeners?
Absolutely.
I'm really counting my blessings this week. And I wanted everyone to know that Driftglass went to the P.O. Box. He goes to the P.O. Box about every 2 days.
Yeah.
At least.
And I usually end up weeping in the corner just
because it's empty.
It's empty. I'm like Tiny Tim's crutches next to the fireplace.
Not true.
Not true at all. Not true at all.
But today there were about 19 envelopes.
Yeah.
From as early postmarked the 14th of December.
And they weren't all hate mail, which is amazing.
No, they were all lovely Christmas cards and donations and all kinds of good things. And we're grateful. And I will get back to you in the new year to say thank you officially. Mm-hmm. But I did want you guys to know I have a feeling that our little post office was overwhelmed and set aside sorting mail for business P.O. boxes until the Christmas rush was over.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. I mean, we are a business post office box and, they figure they can wait. So please know we got your mail and we're grateful. Thank you.
You know what? I have space and grace for postal workers.
I do.
Who are overwhelmed during the holidays and arrange things to make their lives bearable during the holiday season.
Yeah. Here's what we can do, and we have to get the packages out to people who are individuals. Right. Feel free to write to both of us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com or P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service, go Postal Unions, letter on the air unless you say otherwise. If you are listening to this in the car or wherever, know that all of that information is at our website, proleftpod.com.
You should also know that saying the part about our post office box being 9133 is my line. So
at the beginning of every show,
I'm going to go all Shatner on you and say, she stole my line. Mr. Roddenberry, she's taking my lines again. Gene, do something about this. One thing you could do that won't cost you a thing, sharing our show on social media. You might know some people who might get a lot out of this. We do get some odd emails and communications from people who say, well, I discovered you on FARC. I heard about you here. A friend of mine shared your podcast with me, and we really appreciate that. It really does work. So if you know anybody who might be a good match for the crazy stuff we do here, let them know we exist and have them give us a try. They might enjoy it.
Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties are making their New Year's resolution to help with the 2026 Blue Wave. They're planning to knock every purple district off the map, literally, because that's what they do best. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Driftglass, and Happy New Year to all of you.
Bye.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.